Mitzi Szereto, the book is Thrones of Desire. I grabbed the book as soon as I saw that you were one of the authors and there was a chance I could talk to you because sex and fantasy and science fiction are like way up high on my list of things that are interesting.
Yes, well, I mean, it's all starting since Game of Thrones has been such a hit. I think it's opened up the readership for fantasy books and kind of, I mean, that you have to admit that's pretty out there, that show.
I grew up reading fantasy and science fiction, and fantasy, it's interesting because it's such a lusty, red-blooded sort of thing to write about, but there was always very little actual sex having going on. What do you suppose that was?
I think perhaps it was just, maybe a lot of the authors just didn't feel it was appropriate. For instance, in my book, Piers Anthony, who's the legendary fantasy author, he wrote the foreword, and he addressed that in his foreword about the fact that it just wasn't done. And that's one of the reasons he started actually getting involved with self-publishing, because of that whole thing that it just wasn't appropriate, I suppose, to integrate sex into fantasy books. And, he thought, I guess he just felt that was silly. I mean, it's part of life, and it's in other books. It's in crime fiction. It's in literary fiction. So why not fantasy?
Exactly, even in straight-up science fiction.
Exactly.
But not in fantasy so much.
Yeah, I don't know. It might be because perhaps fantasy is perceived as younger readerships. I mean, you've got like the Harry Potter and the Tolkien books, and they always had a younger readership. And I confess I'm not a huge fan of those. It's not really of interest to me, but I don't think there's anything too steamy in those. And so perhaps that's just been the assumption that it's got a younger readership, and that wasn't addressed.
Fan fiction, I guess, is where that picked up. All the sex that was left out of the fantasy books got swept up in fan fiction, which of course goes back 30, 40 years. People.
Yeah, I've heard there's a big bunch that have some pretty steamy Star Trek episodes.
Yes, or so I've been told.
Yeah, I guess Spock definitely has different sides to him. Yeah.
Mitzi Szereto, the book is Thrones of Desire. This is an anthology. You didn't write these stories.
Correct.
Are they mostly new stories? Are they older?
No,
Where do they come from?
My anthologies are all, I only take original work, and of course I contribute. Since it's a perk, I'm the boss, so I'm putting a story in it. If you like it or not, I'm putting a story in it. So they're all original stories, and all across the board, all styles of stories. I like to have a really wide variety. I don't want to have everything exactly the same old, same old. So I think I've achieved that. I've got stuff that's a bit very, very, very fantasy kind of epic feeling, and then I have things that are perhaps a little more lighter. So it's something for everyone, I hope.
How did you pick? Did you have like a million stories to choose from, and that one caught your eye, and that one caught your eye? What were your criteria?
I confess I probably intimidate a lot of authors when I put out my submission calls. So, but that's good because it saves me wasting my time. I know when I start reading if it's going to work, and I look for the quality of the prose. I look for an original sounding voice. But like I said, quality is high up there. Something a bit different. Something that's got engaging characters. It could be anything, really. I mean, as you see in the book, no two stories are alike.
Right.
So.
I noticed that there was cross-gender, cross-species in some cases. There was at no point where you said, this is too weird.
No, I mean, there's perhaps lines that I don't cross, but as I said, I think the prose and the quality of it speaks for itself. So if something might be a bit weird, you have to look at the overall work itself, and I think that stands for it, rather than saying, oh, this is just weird and forget it. So if it goes in the book, it means it didn't cross any line too far.
Mitzi Szereto, the book is Thrones of Desire. We mentioned Game of Thrones, which certainly sparked an interest in erotica and high fantasy. And coming from the other direction, of course, you have to talk about 50 Shades of Grey, although it's the giant, poorly written elephant in the room.
Yeah, you can't, unfortunately, the radio can't see me rolling my eyes as you mentioned that.
We're both rolling our eyes.
Yeah.
It's a shame that since there's so much that's brilliant, that was the book that, she's got more money than we'll ever see in our entire lives and has sold more books than any of us ever will.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll make people want to buy your book and more. I guess that's the silver lining here.
Well, I think that's what a lot of people are hoping, but I'm more concerned with perhaps it backfiring because of the fact that we're suddenly this book that is really a mediocre at best example is being put out there, and I think it could also drive readers away. So it's possible there'll be a big influx of readers to anything that says erotic on it, and then that could die out. And now, because everyone's jumping on the bandwagon, which is what we always get in publishing,
Sure.
same in film and TV, no
Sure.
different, we're getting in more substandard material, and that could end up damaging a lot of people that do quality books.
Something people might want to read if they're interested is your take on Pride and Prejudice.
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, to be honest with you, they probably shouldn't have put the label erotica. It's a sex parody. I approached that book just like the Pride and Prejudice and Zombies books, but I don't have zombies, I've got sex. And it's completely outrageous, it's completely off the wall, it's completely ridiculous, and you need a sense of humor. If you're po-faced, don't read the book because you won't enjoy it. But it's good fun, and that was what I wanted to do with it.
Mitzi Szereto, Thrones of Desire. Let's talk about the individual stories. What were some of your favorites?
Gosh, you know what? I get asked that, and I kind of feel that's going...
They're all your children, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, then someone's going to say, Mitzi didn't say my story's the favorite. It's really hard to say because they're all so different. And the funny thing is I've never been a huge fantasy fan, and yet I've done a collection of fantasy. So it's not really my thing. But let's see. I like this. I think there's one story in there that's quite interesting about a dragon master.
I had a feeling you were going to talk about that one. I like that story quite a bit.
Yeah, where she essentially has to have sex with a gay man in order so that she can ride his dragon. And it's just sort of interesting how it plays with that whole thing about your sexuality and gender, and that maybe these things are not as clear-cut and black and white as we might think.
I'm hoping that people will read this book, Thrones of Desire, and follow some of these authors and find out, do they have longer works? Can you talk about any of the authors in particular?
Well, there are some people that have written novels, and people who are getting more involved in novels. I mean, I've got some new people in the book. I have one person in the book is actually a student at UC Berkeley, so this was her first published piece. And I love doing that because I like to take people that don't have a preconceived notion of what they think the genre is. That's the problem you run into. And this way, they just write, and that's what I say I do. I just write. I'm not doing a genre. And that's kind of good to get in something totally fresh, that they're not trying to do something for a specific market or what they think the market is.
Did you come away from this project more interested in fantasy fiction?
Not necessarily. I mean, actually, I'm doing other books that are totally unrelated. I'm doing a gothic thing now, and I've got something else which I don't want to mention yet because this business is so...
Understood.
Yeah, cannibalistic. And I'm also writing a novel, so they're totally opposite again. But it still has some of a paranormal thing happening, and fantasy does have paranormal.
So there you go.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and say Mitzi was influenced.
Okay, you can go ahead.
Now, I was talking to Susie Bright, and she said, ask about her teddy bear.
Yeah, Teddy, he's not here with us today. He and I wrote a book together called Normal for Norfolk, the Thelonious T-Bear Chronicles. And it's a quirky crime novel cozy mystery. And since he's my co-author and he did not get invited to the fair, he's in a strop and he refused to show up today.
Oh, well, people can take a look at him and perhaps leave him a message on your website, though, right?
Well, he's got his own Twitter account. He has a Facebook fan page. And as I said, we have the book out together. So he wants people to buy his book because he wants a Mini Cooper.
I have one. They're fabulous.
Okay, there you
Where
go.
can people find you and Teddy online?
Well, I have a website, MitziSeretto.com. I'm all over Facebook. I've got my Facebook fan page as well. I've got a blog called Errant Ramblings, and I have a web TV channel called Mitzi TV, which covers quirky London.
What are you doing here? You're busy.
I am busy, and I have 3 books I have to do when I leave.
Okay, we'll let you get back to work. Mitzi Szereto, the book is Thrones of Desire. Pleasure to meet you. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.